How could the world's most powerful army, led by a military genius, vanish into snow and silence? In 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte marched more than 600,000 confident men into the vast heart of Russia, certain of a swift victory. But what awaited them was not an easy, glorious war. It was fire, ice, hunger, and a brutal test of survival. This is the story of an empire that reached its peak, only to begin a catastrophic collapse from which it would never fully recover. In June 1812, history witnessed the assembly of the largest European army ever seen. More than 685,000 men of the Grande Armée, an intricate mosaic of nations, under the command of a single emperor, gathered with fervor at the Niemen River. Their leader, the determined General Napoleon Bonaparte, swore to deliver a swift and decisive blow against Alexander I of Russia, in order to enforce the continental system. Confidence was not merely present. It was absolute. This was not just an army. It was a declaration of overwhelming, continental power, ready to bend a defiant empire to its will. The air hummed with the expectation of victory. Belief in their invincibility felt as tangible as the dust of summer. They crossed the river and marched steadily into Russia, advancing toward what they believed was a predetermined destiny, unaware that the vast, silent plains ahead concealed an enemy unlike any they had faced before, one that did not fight with cannons alone. The great gamble had begun. The Grande Armée pushed deep into Russia, but the decisive battle they expected never came. Instead, they were met with a new and insidious strategy. The Russian commander Michael Andreas Barclay de Tolly executed a masterful retreat, luring the invaders ever deeper into the vast interior. As the French advanced, they found not supplies but ashes. Villages were abandoned, crops were burned, and wells were poisoned. It was the innocent who suffered most. This was a scorched-earth war, designed to let the sheer vastness of Russia and the force of hunger do the work of armies. Frustration within the French ranks grew relentlessly. The summer heat was suffocating and exhausting. Foraging parties returned with less and less. Hope diminished with every empty town. The promise of a swift victory evaporated in the smoky haze of the burning landscape, replaced by a growing sense of unease. The enemy was not just ahead of them, it was everywhere. After the brutal clash at Battle of Borodino, the road to Moscow lay open. On September 14, 1812, the vanguard of the Grande Armée entered Russia's ancient capital. But there was no delegation offering surrender, no cheering crowds, only an unsettling silence filled the air. Moscow was a ghost city, its population had fled. The French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte established his headquarters in the Moscow Kremlin and waited for a message of surrender from Alexander I of Russia, a message that would never come. The victory felt hollow, the prize empty. Then within hours, a new horror emerged. Fires deliberately set began to spread across the city, growing into an unstoppable inferno. What should have been shelter for the winter was rapidly turning into a fiery trap. The conquerors of Moscow found themselves masters of nothing but a magnificent, burning ruin, where the first snowflakes of early winter fell, mixing with drifting ashes. With Moscow a smoldering ruin and the Tsar defiantly silent, the French emperor's hand was forced. On October 19th, the Great Retreat began. The army, burdened with loot but short on food, turned back. They were soon met by their true nemesis. The Russian winter, arriving weeks early, descended with shocking ferocity. Temperatures plummeted to unimaginable lows. Snowstorms turned the landscape into a white desert, erasing roads and landmarks. This was not a battle against men, but against nature itself. General Winter, as the Russians called it, had taken command. The cold was a relentless attacker, claiming men, horses, and hope. The once proud Grande Armée was becoming a phantom column, a frozen procession of specters, haunted by the Cossack skirmishers, who shadowed their every painful step. The crossing of the Berezina River in late November was the horrifying of the retreat. Under constant Russian artillery fire, Dutch engineers heroically toiled in the freezing water to construct 2 makeshift bridges. What was left of the army, now a desperate crowd of soldiers and camp followers, surged toward this fragile lifeline. The bridges became a choke point of panic and chaos. Men and wagons were pushed into the icy currents. It was here that the Grande Armée as a coherent force truly ceased to exist, filtered by the frigid water and enemy cannons. The few who made it to the other side were no longer soldiers of an empire, but skeletal survivors of an unimaginable ordeal. Of the 685,000 who entered Russia with dreams of glory, only around 40,000 spectral figures would stagger back across the Niemen River.